Today, I would like to welcome you to a mindfulness meditation where we introduce and consider some of the basic assumptions in dialectical behavior therapy. The goal of this meditation isn't to specifically agree or disagree with any of these assumptions, but rather to observe how your body feels about them. You may agree with some of what we talk about, and you may disagree. That is okay. The goal is simply to observe what you feel in response to the content we discuss. First, mindfulness involves becoming aware of yourself and your own body. It involves activating both the right side and the left side of one's brain. When we live life, it is easy for our consciousness to be focused on whatever task we are doing or on a specific worry and not much more. Mindfulness is about allowing our consciousness to extend not only to what is outside of you in the world around you, but also to your entire body and what is happening inside of you. A great way to become aware of how we feel inside, to become aware of our own bodies, is through our breathing. So first, let's take some deep breaths. Slowly draw in air through your nose. And then after a short pause, slowly let it out through your mouth. Keep doing this. Feel your body expanding as the air fills your lungs. And then feel the sensation of the air slowly leaving your lungs. As you take these breaths, feel how far your body expands as the air goes in. Is the air going into a small space inside you? Or is your entire body expanding all the way out to your arms and legs? How do you feel right now? Do you feel comfortable or uncomfortable? Do you feel tense or relaxed? Are there places in your body where you feel relaxed and other places where you feel tense? As you continue to take these deep, calming breaths, don't feel pressured to change anything. Just allow yourself to become aware of how you feel in your body. Be an observer. Now, as you feel present in your bodies and are aware of how you feel, we will begin to focus on some of the foundational principles or assumptions from DBT. Once again, you don't have to agree or disagree. Simply let these ideas sit and see how you feel about them. See what thoughts come up. See what feelings arise in your body as we present these ideas. And take note of them. And we can discuss that later in group. First, DBT is based on the assumption that people are doing the best they can. This doesn't mean that they aren't making mistakes, but that in a moment of time, they make a decision for what they think is the best thing to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that we would agree that it is the best thing to do, but people genuinely do make choices for what they believe is the best thing to do. Just as we take in these ideas, just see how you feel about them and what thoughts come to mind. And now let's add in two more assumptions. First is the assumption that people want to improve and do better. People aren't there hoping to do the worst they can. Usually they want to improve. And then secondly is the assumption that people can do better. They can try, and they can be more motivated to change. This is the dialectic, the two contrasting principles. On the one hand, people make choices for what they believe is best, but at the same time, it is possible for them to make better choices and for them to try harder. And trying harder doesn't necessarily mean expending more effort, but finding a solution that produces better results. Sometimes it's finding solutions that produce better results for less effort, working smarter and not harder. How do you feel about this idea, this assumption that DBT makes, that people do the best they can, but there are also always ways to improve? There are always new strategies and new skills that can be learned to improve outcomes. Do these ideas give you hope, or are they discouraging? Does it feel peaceful inside, or do you feel turmoil? Take note of how you feel. If you feel stuck or distressed by one of those statements, take some deep, slow breaths to reorient yourself before we move on. The next principle or assumption that DBT is based on is the concept or the belief that we don't cause all our own problems, but we often have to solve those problems anyways. Sometimes we face problems due to nature and the world we live in. Sometimes we face problems because of other people in our lives. But we still have to take action to manage or solve those problems since they impact us. This doesn't mean that we can or are responsible to solve every aspect of that problem. Many problems are beyond our ability as individuals to solve. But we have to effectively manage how we interact with those problems. And we can do that even if we weren't the ones responsible for creating those problems in the first place. Take a moment to see how you feel about that. Is it difficult to accept? Or is it something that you feel comfortable with? Does it feel empowering? The idea that even if we didn't create the problem, we can do something to effectively manage it. Take note of how you feel. Another DBT principle is that learning new behavior takes practice. Not just in the situation where the skills are needed, but in all aspects of life. We can take action to find new ways to solve problems, but to really get good at it, we need to practice. See how that sits with you. Take note of how you feel, what thoughts come to mind, and how you feel in your body. Moving on, another DBT principle is that all behaviors, thoughts, actions, and emotions have a cause, whether or not we know that cause. Our emotions and behaviors are not random. There's a reason we do what we do. This means that we can also change our emotions and behaviors by changing or interrupting the chain of events that led to the behavior or emotion. How does this sit with you? Breathe deeply and allow yourself to be consciously aware of how this feels. My feelings are not random. They have a cause. It was probably a good cause, a good reason, even if it doesn't feel so right now. I can learn about the cause. I can understand my emotions, and I can find ways to change. How does that feel with you? Finally, DBT is based on the belief that figuring out and changing the causes of my behavior works better than judging and blaming myself for the behavior. My behavior doesn't mean that I'm messed up or crazy. My behavior is a reaction to various factors around me and in me. And I can take action to change some of those factors, to change my behavior. Let that just sit there. How do you feel about that? What thoughts come to mind? Take some deep breaths. These principles that we've talked about today are a lot to put into one meditation. Maybe you weren't able to actually sit with all of them. That's okay. The goal of this exercise is not to complete a task and check all the boxes. The goal is simply to connect with yourself. Become aware of yourself in a mindful way. Become aware of yourself when you're in a resting state, and be aware of what happens inside in response to inputs, such as the core assumptions of DBT that we discussed today. The skill of self-awareness that we practice in an exercise like this will be valuable to you as you continue your life journey. As we conclude this exercise, just take a few more deep, slow breaths.